Many thanks to Yemi Ajay for the background report. Joining us now for the conversation is Dr. Bayode Lawrence, the Deputy Director, ICT, INEC. You're welcome to the program. All right. Also here from INEC is Odao Aisien, the Deputy Director, Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good morning.
And we also have joining us here in the studio Dr. Adoyi Matthew Omale, Public Affairs Analyst. It's glad to have you join us.
Good morning.
Regular. It's a regular. We also have another regular in the studio, Ezenwa Nwago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. He is also joining us here in the studio. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, gentlemen, we had the rerun and elections over the weekend, and I would like you to give us an assessment of your thoughts of how it went on. Let's begin with Ezenwa.
Well, for me, court-ordered elections, orders that are circumstantial because of probably death and resignations. The level of preparation from the different stakeholders for me is what I've been interested in, and the processes that have led to that. I think INEC has ticked out the box in my view by making sure that the materials from the general report that we had, I think polls opened on time. The officials were there when they are supposed to be. But in many places, I don't think that the political parties and the candidates discharge themselves in terms of mobilization. I can't wrap my head around why, for instance, in Surulere, the winning party will be winning with about just 11,000 votes for a place where you had 100 and about 60-something thousand people coming out to vote. That speaks for me that those who were contesting that election probably didn't do as much as they should do. The downside for me was the fact that we could still be talking about missing result sheets. I think that diminishes us as a people. I don't want to know what the excuses are, but I think that perhaps those who have responsibility to ensure that those kind of things don't even happen. I was watching the resident electoral commissioner, the left-handed manner in which he was pushing it aside and saying, "No, elections will continue," and all of that, and that he's going to do this and that. But I'm more in terms now of consequences and sanctions. We should be told what happened. The results don't disappear, the sheets don't disappear. Whether if it is that it didn't come or it was misplaced, those explanations need to come out, because we're dealing with confidence. The confidence level needs to be boosted of citizens, voters, and different stakeholders. I think the security agencies did quite well also in ensuring that in many places that we didn't have an out-of-hand situation. But like I keep saying, we also have to be putting security mobilization with value for money. You tell us the number of people you are deploying to a place. If there is crisis, you tell us why you were not able to prevent. And then if you could prevent. I know that in Akwa Ibom State or somewhere there were arrests. Now that we know that the security officials didn't come from outside the state, that they are within the state, we want to see prosecution, because the excuses has always been that, because of the movements of personnel, that after that the personnel goes back to his. So now we want to find out why those people who were arrested. So the different stakeholders, I think, in a general level, discharge themselves creditably in my view.
All right, thank you. I'd like to get to the Deputy Director of Voter Education now, Odao Aisien. Of course, you're going to tell us what your assessment, of the whole electoral process, and then you've heard some of, the comments made by Mr. Nwago about the conduct of INEC officials. I think that's where I want you to respond. Election materials, like result sheets been missing, conduct of some INEC staff. during the election, all of that. So,
Well, thank you very much. As we know, these elections held just about 2 days ago, and the elections held at a variety of locations dispersed around the country. In fact, these elections involved almost 9,000 polling units and well over 4.5 million voters, registered voters. So, all of these, minutiae, all of these incidents which occurred here or there, we'll have to sort of evaluate them, broadly speaking. But if I take a synopsis of the election so far, I think from the INEC perspective, they've been successful. We've had cancellations so far in only 3 states, a number of polling units in Akwa Ibom, Enugu, and Kano states. So I think, broadly speaking, the Commission has fared well. Doubtless, there will be incidents. So we'll evaluate them when they come. It's just, it's less than 48 hours since the elections concluded. So we'll see. But so far, I think, broadly speaking, the Commission has fared well.
You evaluate them, but there are still some cancelled elections that we see.
I mentioned that, yes.
Yes, yes.
Akwa Ibom, Enugu, and Kano,
Yes.
there have been some cancellations in some polling units.
Why were they cancelled?
The disruptiveness. There's some disruptions and all that. But when you consider the scope of the elections and the fact that these elections occurred at, disparate locations, you look at the number of voters, at least registered voters for the elections, well over 4.5 million, number of polling units. Relatively speaking, I think the figures are not alarming. So I think in that respect, the Commission has done
not
well.
alarming, but you have not responded to the issue of missing result sheets.
Yes, and not enough voting materials. There were
In certain
cases like
locations.
that.
Exactly. Now, when you consider that these elections held across 26 states, so to single a single state out, a single scenario out like that, we'll have to evaluate first before we
I
make
don't
any
understand
comments
when you
on.
say 26 states. Are you saying that's too much for INEC to handle?
No. But I'm saying it's too early right now for me to make any comments regarding that. We'll have to evaluate that and be properly informed before I make any comments to the public regarding
Okay, talking about being properly informed, I'm sure Dr. Bayode Lawrence should be properly informed as to why we still see that a lot of snatching was done in this election, ballot boxes and the rest. Because we from what we gathered, when the beavers functions optimally, all of that would not amount to anything. But first and foremost, let us know, were results uploaded in IREV during this election?
Yes.
I mean, I'm coming down, so that's number one. In all the states where elections held, where results uploaded in IREV, were they timely uploaded, or was it, after some hours or whatever? Was it immediately as they were being, collated at the polling units? And then, could you also tell us if the beavers functioned optimally in this election? Just give us a percentage, because a lot of Nigerians are worried about the fact that we're going back to the era of ballot box snatching, results getting missing, ballot papers being snatched. So if the beavers, if the result from the beavers is what would be acceptable, why are we going back to this trend? Maybe I'm sure you have all the answers to that.
Thank you so much for those questions. To start with, honestly, the reason why the issue of ballot box snatching is resurfacing, for me, is just for the political actors to ensure that the election at that particular location is disrupted. And it does not amount to anything, because the rules from INEC is clear. If an election in a location is disrupted, that result or that election in that location will be cancelled. Just like my colleague has said, in some places in the last election, some locations, elections in some locations were cancelled. And you can't rule out this. Those elections were cancelled because of this reason, because of some ballot box snatching, some invasion of talk. And they do this just to maybe for example, is a strong location of a particular person, and okay, let's go there and disrupt the election there so that election will not be held there. If it is disrupted, INEC will cancel that election from that location. So they go there and do. That's in my own opinion. It doesn't affect what we are doing. The beavers is there. In those days, ballot box were snatched to go and load the ballot boxes with ballot papers. That does not tell any longer. And the reason why ballot boxes were snatched in those days is different from the reason why they are being snatched today. The reason why they were snatched in those days were to snatch the ballot box, go and load them with ballot papers and bring them back. But these days, it is snatched because they want to disrupt the election in that location. Now, going to whether the Beavers machine perform optimally, from what we monitor from the back end, the Beavers machine perform optimally, and whether the Beavers machine was used to upload result to the IRF portal, yet the Beavers machine was also used to upload results to the RF portal. As we speak, I can't give figures to this, but we have more than 95% of results already on the IRF portal, and more than 95% of accredited voters data that we have at our back end of the accreditation system. So the system worked optimally.
Okay, the system worked optimally, and there was a lot of ballot snatching and not enough ballot sheet for people to vote. But if technology is used all over the world, during elections, if the beavers already have the data of those who voted, does it affect the election if ballot papers are taken away because it's already recorded and can be uploaded?
Yes, we have this technology supporting the process, but again, some of these processes are still manual. For the result to be announced, the ballot papers has to be counted. The beavers is just there to checkmate what will be announced. For example, you have 100 people already voted in a particular location, and we have 100 accredited voters on the beavers. So it means that the ballot papers that will be counted should be 100. But if at the point of counting, the ballot papers are not there, what are you going to count if it has been snatched already? So what are you going to count? So it is still manual. The manual, the technology is supporting the manual. And the reason why the commission is doing all this is just, again, for transparency and to add integrity and credibility to the process. So if ballot papers are being snatched away, even if you have the information on the beavers, the rule is that for you to announce result, the ballot papers has to be sorted, has to be counted in the presence of everybody. It is when you count, it is when you sort, when you count, that you can now announce the result. So we now use the machine to checkmate whether what you have announced is in tandem with what the machine captured.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. Let's bring in Dr. Adoye Matthew Omale into the conversation. As a public affairs analyst, most Nigerians feel disenfranchised during elections, and the language of elections in Nigeria is credible, free, and fair. Is it?
Well, one of the tenets of democracy is free and fair and credible election. When you don't have free, fair, and credible election, democracy is threatened. Now, with what has been happening in this country, I'm still surprised that we are still talking about ballot box snatching, INEC officials coming to polling booths with pre-filled result sheets. It happened in Kogi, and then it's reared its ugly head. I watched the drama in Enugu, where the INEC official was accused of coming with a pre-filled election result. And I said, why in this 21st century, why are we doing that? Who is in charge of these materials that will give it out to some other people? They will go and fill it and then come to the polling booth. So I listened to the director of ICT. He said ballot snatching now is done because politicians who want to disrupt the process. No, the process is being disrupted from the research we did, because most of the guidelines for the elections are not followed. So the people get angry. The beavers, some people will not want to use the beavers machine. They will say it's malfunctioning, and people have been on the line from morning. So in some in some cases, the ad hoc staff, they want to circumvent the process in one way or the other, and those are the things that precipitate violence in the polling booths. So I think INEC need to up their game. In most of the problems we are having with this election is because of the way and manner the electoral management body conducts the affairs of the election. If they are transparent, I don't think many of the violence we witness will be there. Of course, I sympathize with my co-panelists here, because they will have to justify whatever it is. But we as outsiders, as analysts that are neutral, we look at it and we say the way it should be. I am not saying that the political parties and the political actors do not have their fault, but most times they react to what they see on the field. And in the case of Kanu, you know, in some areas they are very laid back and docile, so they might not be able to react the way in places like Kanu or in some other volatile area where people are very conscious and they can rise up and protest, and then you will see the reaction of the people. So I think INEC need to carry out wholesale reforms. I see no reason why we are still using manual system in our electoral system. I see no reason why it's very funny. They will be bringing out 1 or 2 ballot sheets. It's for a country like Nigeria, we should digitalize all aspects of our electoral system, so that the presiding officers or the INEC ad hoc staff or whoever they are, so that they will not be able to circumvent the processes. Look at the issue of Kano. They said ballot papers were not stamped behind, so because of that they want to annul the whole governorship elections. So some of these analog ways of doing things is just for the process to be undermined. I like what my colleague Eze has said here. People have been arrested. How many of these people that are arrested are being prosecuted? We have been crying that there should be special tribunal to try electoral offenses. These things are not being done. Even when the people who perpetrate this violence or who perpetrate this electoral fraud are arrested, we no longer hear whatever the decisions or whatever prosecution the electoral body has done in relation to those persons. And these are some of the very unfortunate activity. Now, INEC ad hoc staff has been caught with pre-filled ballot paper. What happened to a pre-filled election result? What happened to that kind of person? I listened on television the other day. They said the man has been suspended or has been whatever.
But is that enough just to be suspended?
It's not enough. It's clear that it's not enough.
Okay, Dr. Mali, thank you. I'd like to get to Mr. Nwagu now. You have been monitoring elections in this country since when elections started, so you know where we are coming from and where we are at the moment. And, you know, for a lot of Nigerians, the issues have remained the same. The problems of our electoral process have remained the same. I would like to find out from you, looking at what played out on Saturday, how would you want to rate INEC?
Things have not remained the same.
Have they gotten better or gotten worse?
Yes, we have made incremental progress.
But how would you want to rate INEC in terms of the conduct of elections? I'm asking that on the background of low voter turnout. You talked about confidence earlier. How many Nigerians have confidence in the whole process? What plays out on the field on election day?
That's something we have to, you know, contextualize. Because if you don't contextualize it, you would not understand it. The first thing is that, have we made progress? Yes. Incrementally we have. We are not where we used to be. We were at a point where you are going to vote and the result of where you are going to be voted is being announced. We have not even voted. That's not where we are now. There's a shift. Now, incrementally also, we are working to take out the human element in our electoral process. That is why you have what you call bi-modal. Bi means two things working side by side. Manual, technology coming together. Now, you can talk about technology, but you have to be cautious. You have to be wary, because there is no country in the world that fully digitalizes its elections. Even the most advanced countries in the world, Germany, don't even go near technology, because election is a competitive enterprise, and the players in it oftentimes are not interested in altruistic processes. They vent their, no matter where it is, politicians are interested in dubious advantage. Now, one of the challenges that we have is that in discussing the elections, we centralize the electoral management body. If I allow you, we are going to discuss INEC. Somebody came to disrupt elections. Who is the person? An INEC official has come, set up, right? Now, there is a party agent. In Enugu, the party agents discharge themselves creditably, okay, by doing the work that they are sent to do. If you come as an INEC official, the first thing you do is to show everything you have come with. The ballot papers, the result sheets, and all of that. So it is the duty of the party agent to say, I have not seen X, Y, Z. And then the officials can say, okay, that's what stalled that. So you have a process, if followed properly, you will not have those kind of issues. Because once the party agent says, I have not seen this, the electoral official has a responsibility to do that. But when thugs come to interfere in the process, two things have happened. Either compromise by the security agents, or, all right, compromise by, or the politicians themselves wanting, and that's what Dr. Bayode was talking about. There is what you call voter suppression. Now, voter suppression is, you are big here, maybe you are not so
Big
well
there.
here. So what do you do as a politician? You say, okay, disrupt where I'm not. If my opponent is strong in this place, go and disrupt his own area. You can't take that away. Now we must put the feet of the politicians on fire. They are the ones that are absent from conversations about reforms. No matter what you do, they want to subvert the process. And we are not engaging. So INEC has a system, right? Where, for instance, if we push very hard, there are officials who have been found culpable will be interdicted, because they are, and for instance, you have seen two professors in Akwa Ibom. One was jailed. I don't know whether he has been, I think whether something happened, but at least the fact that he was jailed for, an INEC official jailed for, the dereliction of duty, is a good signal. And there are many other INEC officials who are in court. Where is the politicians? Where is the PDP? Where is the APC? Where is the AA? Where is the other people who their own people have vicarious responsibility for disrupting the elections? What do we do with them? The people that are arrested, who goes to release them? Who calls for their release? The politicians. So my concentration in the next level of advocacy is that, yes, our processes, we have oversighted INEC to the point where if we say do X, they move. The whole progress that we have seen in the electoral process is within INEC. INEC is the one that brought beavers. INEC brought IREV for his own integrity processes. What are the politicians doing? What is the concomitant contribution of the political class to improve our elections? Nothing. Dr. Made was saying that in Kano that the people are protesting. It was not a protest. A protest is a different thing from clear disruption of processes, because you have your party agents, you have the security agents, you have all those people. Once you see that extraneous intervention, it means that there's an actor. Now, what happens is that even when we arrest the thugs, like we have arrested some in Akwa Ibom, we will not ask who sent them. The person who sent them will go and release them.
Agreed that the politicians have a big role to play in the whole electoral, struggles that we have in the country. But what about a situation of, the player? I mean, the big player, which is INEC now, or if you like, the official in the game, getting its act right. Because Dr. Mali tried to mention that, for example, it's election day. Polls are supposed to open at 8 a.m. and then officials are not there at 8 a.m. They arrive late, for example. At 10, people are agitated. You get there, you have to wait, and then they are not there. They come at 10. They count the ballot papers. They are insufficient. They now tell you, we forgot our beaver's battery at home. Or we are going back to get so and so. All these issues.
So we have to look at scale. No, because you in dealing with these issues, you have to look at scale. Okay? And you have to look at what then is the reaction by the authorities. Because compromise, battery is that. What has happened is that the politician has a play in that. Because there are disgruntled INEC officials who hawk solutions to politicians. Even when they know that the solutions they hawk to them have no relationship. It's 419, if you'd like to use that word. They go to them and say, we can do X, Y, Z. We can, if we slow the battery, in fact, we may not do this and all of that. But the politician pays for those things. So when the authorities in INEC find that out, it's our responsibility. Like I keep saying now, in Akwa Ibom, people have been arrested. In Enugu, results is missing. What is the EO? What will INEC do with the EO? We are interested in that. That's our role as civil society, to say the EO in charge of that very place where that result sheet was missing. What has happened to him? But 26 states, nearly 80 local governments, one, incidents. You understand? Is not enough to now color all the places where things went well, because I know it's news to talk about where things did not go well, but there are multiple other places where things went well. So we must celebrate that, as we also point to the place where it did not go well.
Exactly, Ezenwa. Let's bring in ASEAN Deputy Director of Water Education. Usually, INEC seems to be in the eye of the storm most of the time during elections. And before elections, you usually bring in the politicians to talk. Some of them sign peace accord and all that. And what something that bothers me is that why must the buck always stop on the decks of INEC? The politicians are also involved, and people are calling for stringent measures against those who go against INEC regulations during elections. Is INEC afraid of some of these politicians that they can't go after them?
Thank you very much. Obviously, INEC, being the umpire, must attract the attention of the public. And of course, INEC, it's correct to evaluate INEC's performance during elections.
Because you're funded with public money, by the way.
Certainly. And in evaluating our performance, you should look at what we've done in terms of logistics, in terms of technology, and so on. And I think that I'll give the Commission a pass mark, even if I were an outsider. Like you pointed out, most of the disruptiveness which occurs during elections is down to the politicians. Yes, one of the guests here mentioned an instance of malfeasance in Akwa Ibom State. In fact, that did not involve proper INEC staff. There were INEC officials, of course, but there were ad hoc staff, there were professors. So INEC staff, broadly speaking, haven't been involved in that sort of level of electoral, malfeasance or misconduct. So, like you said, yes, the politicians are largely to blame for most of these electoral challenges we have. We always engage them. We have many fora, within which we engage politicians. We have stakeholders fora. There's the IPAC. There are many of them, and we try our best to dispose them in the right direction, away from this old culture of violence and disruptiveness. But it persists, nevertheless. So we hope that I think these things will occur, naturally as the country evolves. As the parties become more ideological and all that, I think they will be disposed away from violence and thuggery towards something much more refined. You know.
Okay, talking about something much more refined and developing. When it comes to participation of Nigerians in the election, we have not seen an improvement in how they participate. Of course, voter apathy is one of the major challenges we've experienced in our elections. The numbers keep going down by the day. And looking at what happened on Saturday, in fact, we have fewer people coming out to vote. You mentioned Surulere, for example, where thousands of people are supposed to, participate. And then, the figure just keeps coming down. Dr. Mala, I want to get to you. I want you to please, in your own view, what really do you think is the problem? Because some say it's a lack of confidence on the electoral body and all of that. Some say it was security reasons and all of that. But what really is the problem? Because if we do not have people coming out to participate in elections, then we cannot. Some people have agreed that without voter participation, and optimally, you can have credible elections.
And some have said that the politicians don't do enough to campaign, because they just feel it's a by-election. People will definitely come out and vote.
Outside the by-election,
yes,
even in the general election last year, voter
yes.
turnout was low too.
Yeah, even the general elections, like the president of Nigeria was elected by virtually just 6 million votes difference. So you can imagine. But on a serious note, in several researches conducted across Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians do not have confidence in the neutrality of INEC as an electoral body. I'm being very, very frank. Why? Because the process of appointment of the INEC chairman, the process of appointment of electoral officers, the processes of appointment of INEC commissioners, and so on and so forth. These processes do not confer credibility on the electoral body. So many Nigerians do not see INEC as a neutral electoral arbiter, ab initio. And then from what we get to see, I am a very active politician at the grassroots. Some politicians will prefer to not to even mobilize people. They prefer to walk into INEC offices, cut their deals, and do all kinds of things. That's why you see result sheets missing. You see all kinds of beavers not functioning. You see glitches, what they call glitches. The IT expert is here. And so many things that happen. You see all these ones that they talk about. You see so many manipulations.
A rep coming to announce results.
Then you see they even suppress agents of some political parties. They throw the list out. They call it. So many things. Monitoring of party primaries are done. You see INEC will go to one venue depending on what is. So there are so many confusion. The processes, the setting up of even the electoral, it's not like a referee. We are watching AFCON. We see how CAF is dealing decisively with some of the referees. Even with VAR, you will see some referees will go and see, you have a clear handball, and then they overlook it. So it is happening even in our electoral system. I don't want to believe that our electoral system, the electoral empire, is really independent as it should be. And that is a major problem. We as political scientists, we have identified that one of the serious problems we have with our electoral system is the neutrality, independence of the electoral umpire itself. There are so many things that have been put on ground in the electoral system that need fundamental reforms. Who are the people manning this electoral body? I remember some years ago, some of the electoral commissioners that were chosen, people accused them of being members of some political parties, and nothing was done. They are still left in the INEC. So my take is that some of the apathy you are seeing is as a result of, even if I go and vote, my vote will not count. They have already done whatever they need to do. So most people will want to stay out. Two, the level of insecurity. Ordinarily, even when there are no elections, people are being kidnapped, violence is being unleashed on the society. So why would somebody go and where crowd will gather so that you go and unleash violence on them? So those are some of the issues that is precipitating this lukewarm attitude. So most Nigerians, and then the issue of vote buying.
Yes, I was coming to that.
The issue
Why
of-
is it never goes away?
The
Yeah,
stakes are higher now.
Yeah, the
the
stakes are higher.
because-
25,000 naira for
Yes,
a
you are
vote.
going to run for just a House of Rep election. You have to put like 200 million on ground, so that because that is what will motivate people. So sometimes the apathy you are seeing, sometimes the people will say, okay, those that they wanted, they have shared the money, then they will just go and complete the number, so they will not go out. So the few people that go out, the few money that comes, they share it, and then they do the needful. So the monetization of our electoral process is also another very serious problem. People are going for a rally, you have to budget 5,000 for everybody who must come to a rally. You have to budget money for INEC ad hoc officials who will be there on the day of election. You have to budget money for agents and so on and so forth. So it makes our electoral system very, very expensive. In some instances, I remember sometimes when we monitor, when we organize elections for our political party, even the bus to convey results from one place to another, we the political parties will have to arrange it, and especially if you are the one winning, you want to support. Sometimes to go and even bring the material from the local government headquarters to the polling unit. It is the political party that bear those costs. Did INEC not apportion money for those activities? Even sometimes to go and even move security men, policemen to some of the places, you are the one that will have to provide the logistics and so on and so forth. So these are some of the glaring challenges that is really threatening, and then people become very apprehensive.
It's threatening the credibility
Yes,
of
if
elections
you go to
in
vote and
Nigeria.
then you lose one eye, nobody is going to attend to you.
Yes.
There are no mechanisms to even insure voters. So if you go to vote and then something happens to you,
Except if you
Yeah,
have your
your
own
own.
insurance. Okay, let's bring him in, Mr. Bayode Lawrence. You know, Mr. Omale has raised a lot of pertinent questions, especially about cost of election. It seems like election is a continuous thing in Nigeria now. And usually elections are budgeted with specific money for a specific period of time. Is there money kept aside for this kind of rerun elections when elections are suspended in some areas? That is one. And two, Mr. Asen said some of the staff, some of the people at the election points are not staff of INEC. And from all, that is known about INEC, employment has not been done in INEC for quite a while, and election is big business. So why do you put somebody who you do not trust at a polling unit? Why can't it be a staff of INEC fully employed and also can be punished? These ones can just sell the votes and walk away and nothing happens to them. But if it's a staff, at least there should be a sort of restrictions, don't you think?
Thank you for those questions. But firstly, it would be very, very impossible for the Commission to engage or employ 120,000 staff to man the polling unit in the country. And that is the reason why INEC will always employ ad hoc staff to do this particular job for the Commission. It's expensive to recruit or to employ 120,000 personnel, not as an ad hoc staff now, but as full staff of the Commission. So coming to the issue of budgeting for the election, yes, of course, each time we know that we have a lot of elections now that have been staggered. Obstacle elections are there, and when INEC is preparing for a general election like the one we just conducted in 2023, INEC is a learning organization. We learn from the past. As a matter of fact, we look into lesson gained in previous elections to improve on future elections. So this is not the first time INEC is conducting a general election. And you know that whether you like it or not, people will go to tribunal to challenge the result of an election. So what INEC does is to, as it prepares for a general election, it also takes that into cognizance, to also budget for that aspect in case if there's going to be runoff, for example, in case if there's going to be rerun, for example, are we just going to be going to the National Assembly to begin to ask for such funds? So that will have been built as we prepare for that particular general election. So that is the way the commission operates when it comes to funding of its election. I think these are the two questions that you...
All right, Dr. Lawrence, of course, we'll get back to you with more questions. Let me get to Mr. Nwagu now. Earlier you spoke about, the issues, and then you put all the pressure on the politicians not doing enough and doing all the wrong things. Oh, well, yes, some people would agree with your point, but what do you think, or how would you rate our security agencies in terms of monitoring elections? You are an observer, you're always on the field. Yes, politicians, or if you like, their thugs or their agents misbehave. That's why security agents are supposed to be there. In your own assessment, looking at Saturday's election, from the feelers you have across the polling units and states where the election's held, would you say our security agents are doing the right thing on the field when it comes to election monitoring and security?
I'll just backtrack a bit to where my friend stopped. And the reason I'm going to do that is because, you see, public commentary need to be reset, in my view. IPAC just had an election. IPAC is the umbrella organization of political parties in Nigeria. There are 19 of them. 19
and
only.
in court.
19 only. That's the vehicle for our leadership recruitment process. Have no capacity to organize an election of 19 people. And you don't want us to talk about that.
More or less 250 million Nigerians.
You don't want us to talk about that. See, everything we have discussed dovetails on the complexion, the nature of our political class. A political class that is not Nigerian, that does not think Nigeria. And everywhere conversations are going on. You know, because of the nature of my work, I'm on TV every day. So I get to the television, 90% of the time I'm talking about INEC. And I say, what is this? What does it mean for elections? Election is a stakeholder activity. The action or inaction of one particular stakeholder impacts on the credibility of the election. Whether we are talking about costs of running elections. Now, you saw the last primaries that they did. For this one, how much did the political parties put for taking form? Omale, you are here. 40 million, 30 million. What does that mean? To get the form of a no self-respecting person will take his 30 million, 40 million and go and. So, if you want to have a holistic conversation, is a different thing. But now going back to your question, security agents, political parties, voters see election as a bazaar. Our default mode is that it's a money-making thing. And the election is not compulsory in our country. You must know that this whole thing is voluntary. People go to vote. It's civic. It's not compulsory. So, you can adduce all the reasons that you like for why people don't come out to vote. They are attainable. But also understand that if 20 people come out in Surulere to vote with what we have now, those 20 people, it is the scorer of the majority vote that will go and represent Surulere. You didn't come out to vote because you are angry, because something has happened. That man is going to be your representative for 4 years. So, it is the politicians who benefit from the votes, who have responsibility to go and bring out people. It's not me and you. So what has happened is that it is outsourced to the civil society and the media to go and help politicians do mobilization. And then when they don't do their work, we say apathy. Oh, you know, people are apathetic because this democracy has come to stay. We will continue to work to get it better. But what we must do is to push the different stakeholders who have responsibility to do their own part and ensure that we have oversighted INEC. I'm telling you, we have all our oversight is on INEC. So the real bad guys are comfortable. They are happy. They are cool that we are doing that we are not interfering in their own matters. So to talk about the INEC official, but everything that is bad, orchestrated in the electoral process, is done. Whether you are talking about compromising the security agencies, it is the politicians who go there. They go to them and say, look the other way. So it now has to do with professionalism. You know, it's just like in the media. There are people who come to press conferences, when they finish, they just go. There are others that finish and stay. It has more to it has to do with professionalism. You are the one now determining whether you want to do the right thing or not do the right thing. But for this off-cycle election, I think that they discharge themselves creditably. They try the most parts. At least, like I said, arrests are being made, whether in Kano or in Akwa Ibom or somewhere. People have been arrested. That's what you can do. And the architecture of election is such that in the polling unit, people are unarmed. All right? The security agents there are not arm-bearing security agents. But just few meters away, there are armed people. So if you have a situation, the unarmed people call on the armed guys to come and assist them. We saw that play. We saw that play in this. And what that means is that there were not quite a lot of compromises. You know, when you see the police not act, it is simply because something has gone on. But because we are in a period in which we are thinking of improving the process, what we have to do always is to learn. Then put every stakeholder in his place and then analyze them. The voter sits down and says, look, I have to be paid. He mounts all kinds of excuses why he has to be paid. There is poverty in the land and all that, which is true, and everybody, hunger.
And when they win, they will not know us.
When they win, they will not know hunger and all that. But the question I want to ask you, sweetheart, is if you are going out now and somebody snatches your bag and you pursue the person and get the person and he says, I've not eaten since morning, will you tell him to take your bag and go?
No.
Not at all.
So, what that tells you is that those things are not excuses to break the law. That, oh, I'm hungry. That's why a politician will be boasting that he sat down at the polling unit, he's paying money, people will come. I've heard that he was sitting down, that when you vote, you show him, then they pay you money, he could do. Security agents watch that happen. Because it is about, okay, but the law is about the law. And when I go for trainings, what I tell people is that you say the law does not work in Nigeria, it can begin with you. You go to jail because of that joke. That thing you think is a joke. You are paying money, you are collecting. The day the police want to use you as example, they will just catch you. All your excuses will not be tenable. You will just see yourself on the way to jail. Because you have broken the law. You've broken the law. So hunger is not enough to come and perform that civic responsibility. That man who is going to represent you, the senator who is going to represent you, the one, whether you voted for him or not, he's your representative. And then, as soon as he becomes, you follow up with letters. We are the one that voted for you. The man will go and check his record and say, I bought this thing down. I paid for it. I paid for the vote. That's part is a big issue why we are not developing, and we can help ourselves by taking away from the textbook analysis that we do. You know, my family is we've come a long way. So researchers across Nigeria. The truth is that election pitches people in different camps. Okay, so if 8 million people voted in this way, 8 other million voted in this way, the 8 million together is 16 million. So if you are walking across the road and you are interviewing 16 million people who their party lost, your research will point to a direction. It will not take into cognizance the other 6 million or thereabout who their candidate won. So the researches that you see in election do not consider the competitive nature and the divisive nature of elections. It's like the AFCON you are talking about. If we win a match, the referee did very fantastic. Once we win, the referee was excellent. If we lost, that handball was handball. It was not handball.
Like the disqualified.
Okay, so before we go into football now, we'll take a break. When we return, I'll be coming to Mr. Asen to talk about other issues concerning the rerun elections. Don't go away. Yeah, welcome back, and you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. Mr. Asen, I'll be coming to you now. You know, SNY, as part of the civil society, I've said a lot, and the civil society are part and parcel of the election process, and they work hand in hand with you. At the end of the day, they bring you reports. What do you do with these reports from the civil societies?
Well, it depends. Again, you're speaking about something which is very, very broad.
Yes.
Yeah, with the CSOs, you've got even the PWDs, you've got the women's groups. So we always interface with CSOs, and they give us a deeper insight to what's going on within the electoral environment and within among people in the electorate. So I can't just speak sweepingly about the way we handle reports from CSOs. It depends on which category.
Even international observers, because your eyes cannot be everywhere.
Okay.
So you get these reports from them. Yes.
Okay. So are you talking about election reports?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yes.
So with election reports are obviously examined thoroughly and evaluated. After the last general election, there was a response from the Commission to some of the reports by the then chairman of the INEC Committee on Water Education and Publicity, which is called ISEC, within INEC. And he responded quite clearly to reports, especially from the EU and other bodies. So yes, these reports are evaluated by the Commission, but responses can only come from the highest level, which is from the Commission itself, or any of the Commission's standing committees. But we respond routinely.
You take it into account?
Oh yes. The reports, like I said, are examined, evaluated, and then if there are any lessons to be learned, we try to learn that. If there's anything to sort of imbibe from these reports, anything which could improve the electoral process for us, we take note of that.
What's INEC's view about reports from international observers? Let's just look at the last general election. Does INEC agree with some of the comments put out there by international observers about our elections?
Again, what you're saying is so broad because the observers in question, they're so varied. You're looking at the EU group, you're looking at the Australians, you're looking at all sorts of people. You're looking at even NGOs. You're looking at foreign missions who send their groups here. So as the reports come in,
Well, we know there was a particular narrative, by the international observers considering our last general elections. That's what I'm talking about in particular. I'm just saying that does INEC agree, with some of the comments put out there by international observers?
Yes, I presume you're talking about the EU report on the last general election, and like I said, the chairman of the INEC committee in charge of publicity then responded. I mean, the committee actually held a press conference, I believe, but he responded. And his response was it's received by the public. So yes, and INEC's response here, I think INEC was sort of ambivalent about what the EU report said. there was, to an extent, there was some agreement with what was said, and we also disagreed with some of the findings.
Okay, talking about agreements, Dr. Lawrence, I'd like to come to you. A lot of Nigerians do not seem to agree with the way INEC is, going about its duty. It's a mandate, and then, as we already mentioned, funded by the Nigerian people. And so they expect to see results. And maybe that's why a lot of people would like to point fingers at INEC instead of pointing fingers at the politicians for this purpose. And then, of course, we expect that you deliver on your mandate, which is to serve Nigerians credible, free and fair elections. With what has happened with the rerun election now, and then with the cancellation in certain places and all of that, what next? Are we going to have another rerun? Or what's really going to happen in the 3 states where we have cancellations happening, or results will still be announced like that?
If the result of where these elections were cancelled will not affect the total score that we already have, then the coalition, the returning officer knows what to do according to the rules that is already on ground. And that is where we begin to talk about the margin of lead. We talk about the margin of lead. So, for example,
one state has been, I think there was a declaration inconclusive in Taraba.
Yeah, if that's for you to declare an election inconclusive, then you're talking about the margin of lead. Maybe the places where elections were cancelled, by the time you put these places together, the margin, it's more than the score of the leading candidate at that time. For example, if the total figure put together for where results were cancelled or for where elections were cancelled is 20, and the person who is leading at that time is leading with 10, 20 is more than 10, then it shows that there's going to be not a rerun election, maybe a supplementary election, because a rerun election is by court order. That's rerun election. By election, it's maybe somebody resigned or somebody is late. That's by election. Then supplementary election will now take place in that place where INEC declare that an election is inconclusive. We have a supplementary election. So in these places, if the election is inconclusive, then there's going to be a supplementary election.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Omale. Every election process is a learning process, and there are lessons learned from these elections. Now, where do you think INEC needs to work on in coming elections? Where do they need to make adjustments? Where do they need to ensure that the votes count, and in a way reduce voter apathy, thuggery, and also ballot box snatching?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. First and foremost, I'll use this opportunity to urge the National Assembly not to be tired, to still carry out wholesale amendment of either the Electoral Act again, to ensure that the nomination of INEC chairman, which is still very, very critical, is done. Some people have suggested that the NJC should appoint whoever will head the commission. The processes of appointing the national officers, they need to look at it again. So as we move towards 227, we have a truly independent electoral body. Secondly, the processes of appointing ad hoc staff. The INEC must sit down and proactively look at it. Jega was the one that introduced using academicians and whatever in the process. That need to be properly looked into. The criteria for picking electoral officers, polling unit clerks, at a point they now say youth corpers. We thought that using young people or youth corper will create a lot of change. But it's still being seen that it's not making the design. But so they need to look into those processes. Then issues of logistics. I don't know. It might be very expensive, but a lot of money has been put in. How do they? In fact, in the last general election, we heard that MCO Luomo was giving contract to ferry electoral material, and I was shouting. I say, "Hey, So the processes of pushing INEC logistics, the National Assembly need to also look into that, and then deployment of security agents. I don't know how they are going to do that, but these processes of always announcing large figures, 10,000 deployed, it's not the deployment that matters. And at the end of the day, some polling is you just see one policeman with a baton just standing with thousands of people. So these are the areas that need to be looked into. And then the issue of prosecuting electoral offenders. Some have suggested that there need to be specialized courts. Some have suggested that there's no need for that, but the normal court processes should make sure that justice is done to those who are arrested. So these are the key areas that if we can look at. And then we should go the whole hog. Now we have, beavers are now working. We should go into electronic voting. There's no reason why in 2027 we should not have electronic voting. People, instead of using these paper ballot papers, you could just go click the button and then real time online is showing somewhere else.
All right, Dr. Mali, thank you so much. I'm sure Mr. Wangu would like to respond to that electronic voting comment of yours. But I want to ask, because earlier you were talking about the amount that politicians spend, in the course of elections and all of that. But I want to find out what you think about what the country is also spending for elections. How much is spent on INEC, and how much INEC spends, on elections. Looking at the general elections, looking at what was spent on Saturday, and then from what Dr. Lawrence said, we're going to be having supplementary again. I mean, would you say that we are spending rightly? I'm asking because after all the spending, we see a lot of election petitions coming up. The court now decides again for us who is actually duly elected or not. And in some cases, they tell us to go and do a rerun, more money being spent. Do you really think this is money being put in the right places?
I won't answer you directly, but I'll try to say that we're litigious people. We like going to court. So even when we know we don't have a matter, the Americans have a way of dealing with that. They have a system in which they look at what can go to court and what shouldn't go to court. Most of the things that you saw that we are dealing with had nothing to do with the conduct of the 2023 election. Almost 70% had nothing to do with how elections were conducted at the judiciary level. It had more to do with the shenanigans of the political parties and how they behaved. You understand what I'm saying? That's number one. Number two, there is nowhere in the world where you can determine whether somebody will die or somebody will resign. So if somebody dies, you must replace that person. And the one we need to deal with is this resignation spree. You were elected to this thing, you go and resign and take another fee. Then you open up a vacancy for us to we've got to
spend more money.
We've got to think about that. Then when we also talk about money and INEC, sometimes we need to, as journalists, we need to go and find out whether they got the money. Because you see, is a different thing to say there is three, just like NTA here. You may have budget of I can go to your budget envelope and see that there is 100 million or billion. But if you find out, you may not even get up to 40 billion. This is what we are contending with. And because we are territorial, we are very opaque. We don't speak out. So these directors that are here now, if you ask them whether INEC has got all the money they need for the election, they will say yes. But they know that many times, even the money that is voted, otherwise, what is INEC chairman going to the accountant general's office for during the rerun? What did he go there to do? an organization, that is institution that is supposed to be independent, that is supposed to be on the first line charge, that should have his money. Why does he have to visit National Assembly, visit AG, the Attorney General, what's that, Accountant General? What is he going there to do? He should have those, but because we are here and we don't talk, we can't speak to anybody, we grudgingly hold those situations. The police should get their money to provide security. Okay? They go to INEC to say INEC should give them money to service armored carriers. So it is only election time that you are going to service your armored carriers. You can't service and be ready at all times. When the police access, you have responsibility to maintain, to enforce all laws. And enforcing all laws, it has nothing to do with elections. It's at every time. So our problem, my sister, is there are many. They are not television issues. But the point that needs to be made is that, for me, if we want to reduce cost of election, it will start by the political parties. They should reduce cost of nomination forms. People sell their properties to go to offices. So when they get to those offices, it's a hedge for the first thing they do is
borrow.
It's like a contribution that you need to get back.
They get it back. So all the time, the convoluted conversations that we're having about cost of governance starts from, why would the National Assembly put a ceiling on, say, 1 billion, 2 billion? Those are laughable, because you also know that you spend much more than that. And my friend Adoyi was talking about he's appealing to National Assembly to make reform laws. The mortuary of good laws is in the National Assembly. They are politicians. They are the ones who make this law. They are going to make laws that will improve a system that would the Electoral Act 2023 is the reason why a lot of them did not come back. So when you push them to go and do reform, be careful what kind of reform you are asking them to do. I agree with the issues around the appointment of INEC chairman, appointment of the national commissioners, appointment of the resident electoral commissioners. But Justice Uwe's committee report is opaque. We need to contemporize it. The NJC that is suggested in that place is a commission created by the Constitution. Section 14 of the Constitution, created that commission. So another commission cannot be appointing for another commission created by the Constitution. What we need to do is to have a broad-based ad hoc recruitment process. What does that mean? The media, civil society, INEC itself, security agents, the judiciary itself can be appointed to do recruitment, and then do a short list of 3 and send to the president, with which he can only choose out of that 3. The universities do that. Whereas the university has autonomy, but the university's internal process allows them to do their own selection processes and send to the visitor for approval. So that kind of initiative can come. We can begin to think that way, but we can't stay on one thing, and say, Waste Commission said. But in terms of credibility, we have issues where card-carrying members of political parties, known card-carrying members of political parties, are sitting pretty in a sacred institution like INEC.
Okay.
It does not inspire confidence, whether for neutrality or impartiality. But the deputy director of VET was talking about the professor not being their staff. He's your staff. Anybody working for INEC during election is
a staff
an
of
INEC staff. We don't know any other thing that you are saying.
Okay,
the person is your staff, and when he releases his responsibility, we hold
Okay, Mr. Asen, you've listened to Ezenwa speak so much about it. You are now Deputy Director of Voter Education. From now to 2027.
How do you know?
No, what I'm trying to say, from now to 2027, okay, how is INEC going to work on voter education?
Okay, thank you very much. Regarding the last elections of Saturday, publicity here in Abuja probably wouldn't have been palpable because there was nothing going on here election-wise. But when there's a general election, we carry out a real blitz there's a template which all the state offices use for publicity. And even prior to the election, remember there'll be voter registration. So from the commencement of voter registration up till the general election, there'll be a lot of publicity, and voters will know all they need to know.
Are you going to work in conjunction with the NOA, National Orientation
We
Agency?
always do that. We always do that. The NOA, CSOs, and so on. We work. We collaborate with them. We
All
always
right.
do that.
Thank you so much. So, of course, we're looking forward to see, we have cycle elections. Edo is coming up.
September, November.
This year.
Yes, Ondo is coming up.
Ondo is coming up.
Yes.
So we'll see your performance. Of course, that would let us know how 2027 would look like.
Yes.
You know, but like some people would say, off-cycle elections may not really, show what INEC would do in a general election. Exactly.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for your contributions to the conversation. Dr. Bayode Lawrence, Deputy Director, ICT INEC, thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Odaro Esen, Deputy Director, Voter Education and Publicity INEC, thank you for coming. You're coming for the first time?
Yes.
It's a pleasure. Dr. Adoyi Martel Omale, Public Affairs Analyst, as always, we appreciate your input.
Forward to see more researchers.
Yes, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. As usual, it's a pleasure having you. Politicians will go for your head very soon. Thank you so much. We take foreign news now.